Hello, everybody. We are live. Welcome back to a brand new stream. Make sure you guys hit that like button down below. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Make sure you guys hit the bell if you are subscribed so you never miss another video or a live stream. We already have a lot of people waiting in chat because this is a very hot button issue right now. This is something that a lot of people do care about all across this country. And that is something that we know. And I've covered it on my channel over the past week. We did an election prediction video about it. We did a regular video talking about the whole ordeal. And what we do know is that Donald Trump is on the verge of indictment. Now you have more rumblings saying that he's going to be arrested tomorrow. It was initially supposed to be today. I don't know if the arrest is actually going to happen, but there's a lot of things that I think we do need to sit back here and look at. There are things that we do need to talk about. And what are they exactly trying to get him for? And most people know that by now they're trying to hit him. They're trying to run it back, but they're running it back to arguably the most laughable thing. I think you guys remember there was a meme back in the day where you would see like this horse and like they're laying out the plans to get rid of Trump once and for all. And it like starts off with like the Russia and like it becomes very poorly drawn. And then you look at the front of the horse and it's like drawn by a 5-year-old and it said Stormy Daniels, because that was the scandal that I think everybody agreed was the most ridiculous. There's no proof. There's no evidence of the affair that we do know. And we also know that he successfully has sued her for defamation for, I believe, hundreds of thousands of dollars. We also know that her creepy attorney, Michael Avenatti, is rotting away in a prison cell for probably at least a couple of decades or so. And this is all in the criminal justice system that has not really been that fond of Trump and his movement at the federal level. You have people rotting away in federal prison right now because they were standing outside of a building where people inside allegedly trespassed or got a little rowdy or did something a little, out of line, so to speak, who was probably a Fed, by the way, that was instigating it and doing it. But that's beside the point. All right, that's neither here nor there. What I will say is that that's what they're going back to. Of all the things that they've tried to get him on, like at least you could try to make some of the other stuff sound legitimate. At least you could try to make, oh, look at the Russia stuff here and there, which is obviously nonsense. But if they're going to investigate that, it sounds serious. This is just not serious. First of all, it's not a criminal matter. If anything, it would be a misdemeanor that he paid funds to. Allegedly, what they're trying to say is that he paid the funds from out of pocket to his presidential campaign through a third party because it was like for his campaign. He's paying hush money because you have this crazy woman who's going to go out there and say all these things, whether they had an affair or they didn't have an affair. And then he's going to use that money and keep her quiet so it's not some scandal that he doesn't have to open. That's basically what they are alleging that he did wrong. It's already been talked about for a long time. And this is what happens when you do have these district attorneys. They go rogue and they are trying to make sure that they can weaponize the justice system against their political opponents. And in this case, it's Donald Trump, the number one threat to the system. They've been trying to bring him down ever since he set foot in the political arena. Back in 2015, you saw this. They made sure that as many stores and department stores as possible would drop his merchandise. You saw that from the onset because of what he said about illegal immigration. And now you are seeing this again, but in this case, it's the whole, we're going to prevent him from running again type of thing. And they're going after him for something that's not only like already settled, but something that was so laughable and probably raised Trump's approval rating back in 2018 because of how ridiculous it was and how ridiculous the attacks have gotten. And yes, he can run from prison. He's not going to go to prison. All right. Let's just throw that out there. He's not going to go to prison, but like if he gets arrested, he could still run. He's not like impeached because of this. And if they even tried to throw that out there and tried to impeach him again, which they wouldn't do under the current House leadership, they wouldn't do it there. But we do know if hypothetically, if he got impeached or whatever, it is what it is, right? He would obviously not get impeached in the Senate. They wouldn't have enough votes to get rid of him. They already tried that after 1-6. And honestly, if Trump got a little bit more rogue and he went out there and pardoned all these 1-6 people and did the base things that people say that he should have done, which maybe he should have, or maybe he will, or maybe he should do him in the future if he does get back to political office. Like, oh, we had to pardon Assange and all these people, not these rappers or politicians or whatever. And it's like, I agree with you on principle. He definitely should. But at the same time, you have to understand that McConnell would have likely done everything he could do to impeach him. That's the same reason why Trump got rid of his initial lobbying ban, because they didn't like that. They didn't like it because it drained the swamp, and they made sure that he rescinded that on his way out so he would not get impeached by those other fence sitters who, sit in the middle. They probably would have gotten rid of him for good. But you know what? They didn't do that. They didn't impeach him. And now they're trying to, I guess, ramp up the justice system against him to prevent him from running again because they see him gaining in the polls. Do we have to pull up the polls again? He is gaining in the polls in the primary, which we'll talk about the DeSantis stuff some point during this stream. I want to do this segment, then we'll maybe throw some of the super chats in the mix. If you guys have any questions, statements for me, make sure you send them via super chat. But still, you got to look deep under the surface here and understand it's a political prosecution. They want to stop him from running again. They see him gaining in the polls. They don't like that. They don't like the fact that he's doing well. They don't like the fact he's going out there and he's been relatively on message when he's not on Truth Social at 4 a.m. It's been near spotless messaging. They don't like the fact that he's on the campaign trail in Iowa. They don't like the fact he's taking questions, not just from reporters at rallies, but directly from the people like it's 2015 or 2016 all over again. They don't like the fact that he's proposing the most solid legislation or policy that he has ever proposed in the history of his time in politics. And you could look into this. It's very in-depth. And I know not all of it's going to get implemented. That's how these things work. I get that. But if even like 20 or 30% of the new policy gets implemented under a future Trump administration, that would work wonders. I know Trump is single-handedly not going to save this country. I'm not somebody who's going to say that Trump is going to go out there and completely drain the swamp over his next 4 years when we really didn't see enough of that in the first term. Even though I think his second term would be better than the first, there's less consequences to taking bold action that needs to be taken, politically speaking. But I will say that he's still the largest threat to the system. He's still somebody who challenged the political elite. He's one of the very few outsiders who could successfully mount a campaign. And he's somebody who does listen directly to the people and just some of the grassroots types who have had this energy but didn't really know what to do with it for decades. They weren't voting. They were disaffected. Trump comes along, and then he's somebody who challenges not just the left, but also the establishment on the right. And he's doing that again. And now that the stakes are high, they see the fact that he's going out there, he's polling neck and neck with Biden, which polls we understand are wonky. In the midterms, they underestimated Republicans because Republicans failed to turn out the Trump base. In 2016 and 2020, and arguably 2018, when Trump was either on the ballot or when he was president, in a lot of these Rust Belt places, they vastly underestimated the support for Donald Trump. So I don't know what they're going to be doing in 2024. Maybe they'll be accurate for once. I don't know. But what I will say is it's neck and neck at the presidential level, Trump versus Biden. He destroys Kamala. Even in some of these polls, DeSantis is lagging behind Donald Trump. His supporters will say it's because they're early polls or name recognition or whatever. It doesn't matter. The bottom line is I wouldn't say he's necessarily in the driver's seat, but if you put him up there against Biden, he follows the current trajectory that he's currently on. I do believe that you could even make a case for him being the favorite. And they are terrified because of that. They want him out of the way. And if he was just this pushover who would just give the establishment everything that they want, just like a lot of the DeSantis supporters or DeSantis 2024 types will claim, then why would they be doing this? Why would they be utilizing the justice system against Trump at every turn? And also, when are we going to flip the script on these people? You have a lot of Democrats who do very similar things to what Trump is accused of doing, but even to a much larger degree of incompetence, things that are actually illegal that if a Republican did, they'd be in prison. Where are our district attorneys? Where are our attorney generals going after these politicians, issuing warrants for their arrest? That's what I want to know. But it is possible that Trump could be in handcuffs this week or sometime for something that's totally nonsensical. It's a cool photo op is what it is. It makes him look badass. The left even knows it's nonsense. They might laugh at him or whatever, but they know it's nonsense. The independents definitely know it's nonsense, especially those that don't like Biden but really aren't sold on Trump. And then it obviously is a big bolstering effect in terms of the Republican base, the Trump base. Look, the system is out to get Trump yet again for something that is completely nonsensical, something that arguably may not have even happened to a large degree. We don't even know if this so-called affair happened. There's more evidence that the hush money thing did happen, according to Cohen under oath, even though we know that he is a liar. And I believe he went to jail for the sake of perjury. Don't quote me on that. It's been a while. It's been a story that's been out of the news, but I will say that there really is something here. And this is only helping Trump. The coalition that's like in the middle, that's saying, well, I'm like kind of over Trump. Maybe we need to try something new. And then you see this, and they're targeting Trump like it's the old days, back like you have that maybe not 2016 energy, but like the 2018 energy, where Trump had a 95% approval rating within the Republican Party. Then it's like, okay, yeah, I think this is a very good thing for Donald Trump politically. And you're even to a point where some of the DeSantis supporters, it's not QAnon, it's QAnon, we'll say QAnon. These people, you have Blue Anon, you have QAnon. That's what these people are. I'm coining the term. They're going out there and they're saying, oh, Trump is doing this on purpose. He's making sure that he gets arrested because this is something that's going to bolster his campaign. This is something that's going to help a future presidential run. So even they admit this. So you have the left admitting that this is something that probably is not going to have the effect that they think it is. And then you have the people on the right who are like the neo-never-Trumpers. Many of them are probably going to come home at the end of the day. A lot of them are very terminally online individuals. A lot of them are saying this is going to end up benefiting Donald Trump and backfiring. And then the Trump base is very fired up. And you have people that are saying that it makes it more likely that they're going to support him now. You have energy. He's called for protests. I'm like not entirely sure how to go about that. I'm not going to say I encourage people to go out there because there's likely going to be agitators. There's likely going to be these feds. And I mean, if people find a way to do it peacefully in certain places, it is what it is. They have the right to, but just be careful. Don't do anything stupid. They're going to be looking for a reason to arrest more people for supporting President Trump. That's what they're going to do. So you have to be careful. And Elon Musk is saying that this is going to lead to a Donald Trump landslide. Musk is not a Trump supporter. He is somebody who I believe is the type of person that the DeSantis supporters would point to, who's like, oh, well, DeSantis is less offensive, so they'd vote for him. Whatever, doesn't matter. He's a DeSantis supporter in the general. I don't even know if he would vote for Trump in a general election, even over somebody like Biden. Maybe now because he seems to be moving to the right, but it is what it is. What can I say? But we're going to get to the whole DeSantis response, which I personally thought was weak and underwhelming. DeSantis people thought it was a political miscalculation. And even though I have not been supporting DeSantis for the presidential nomination, I have said that he is an extremely skilled politician down in Florida. He is somebody that Trump should not really take lightly. And I think Trump knows that to a certain extent. He is a lot more of a threat to Donald Trump than literally any single person in the Republican Party right now in terms of losing the mantle. He would probably only stand a chance at losing the mantle to somebody like Ron DeSantis because he is an extremely popular governor. He just won re-election by nearly 20 points in a state that used to be a swing state. And we could talk about why that argument is kind of not necessarily as strong as it may sound out of the water in favor of Ron DeSantis. But I will say that you're looking at this and you are seeing the rise of one person in this party, and he's being propped up by every single institution on the right, pretty much every single donor on the right who opposed Donald Trump's initial rise back in 2015, 2016. A lot of these people actually may have voted for Hillary Clinton in the general or abstained. And these are the same people that may have like held their nose, voted for Trump in 2020. What are they doing right now? Oh, well, they're on the DeSantis train. So they've always been anti-Trump for the wrong reasons. It's not like they're anti-Trump because they even like feel like Trump was a little, underwhelming. And even if you understand that, and I think a lot of Trump supporters understand that Trump here and there was, I don't know, at times not receptive to the base, and that arguably did hold him back to a certain extent in 2020. A lot of that has since been rectified to a large degree, and you could point here and there for criticism still, and that's fine. But you look at what he was talking about on the campaign trail in 2020, you look at what he's talking about now. Now he's going out there. He's talking about putting America first on the world stage again. He's attacking the Republican establishment. Back in 2020, he was, a little wishy-washy on COVID at the time. And he also was supporting things like the Platinum Plan and just pandering to voters who would never vote for the GOP. He's not doing that anymore. Kushner is out of the way. You have a lot of these other weak neocon advisors in his cabinet. He's now trashing them, even though he has Lindsey Graham by his side. He still called him a rhino recently. He says he has disagreements, even though he's like welcoming his endorsement. And I'm not really a fan of him parading on stage with him. Don't get me wrong. Especially, you'll have people that will say, hey, you don't criticize Blum for whatever. You're cultist. And that's the same rhetoric the left uses. I see people now on Twitter that are on the right. They're going out there. They're calling Trump a draft dodger and adulterer. The same BS that the left used against Donald Trump, his entire presidency, is now being used against him by the GOP to divide the GOP, to divide the Trump base. And it's like, this is why I don't support your candidate. You're going out there and all these people are saying all these horrible things about Trump that aren't even true, that the left would use. They're not even, using the old like, oh, haha, gotcha, Blum failed here, which again, you look into it and it's like, oh, well, DeSantis had the same position, or okay, maybe Trump was a little weak there, but if he was at the state level, he would have been stronger here, here, and here because of, these people that were in his way in Congress. It is what it is. But I want to get to the response before I get to super chats. Feel free to still send super chats. We will read them probably around the 30-minute mark or so. We're at the 17-minute mark right now, but we are ready to go. And DeSantis goes out there, and I'm not going to play the audio because I still don't know how via StreamYard, even though I think we're going to move back to OBS pretty shortly after I configure it. But I will say DeSantis went out there when asked about it. What did he do? He ranted about Soros-backed DAs and said this is a Soros-backed DA case and they're weak on crime and we don't have any in Florida. So he's making it about him, first of all. Second of all, he doesn't really say Trump's name in the speech. And this is a similar theme with the Mar-a-Lago raid. I called him out for it then. And obviously, I understand that there were people at the time who said that that was nitpicking or whatever. And I'm like, okay, but they're raiding Trump for, and again, that's out of the news, by the way. He's not getting arrested for the nuclear stuff because that's already been debunked. He's getting arrested for alleged hush money payments that were made. And if anything, that'd be a civil case, not a criminal case. He's not going to get arrested for a misdemeanor, whatever. We know that. But still, I will say he missed the mark. He didn't call out Trump's name. He didn't name Trump, didn't name drop him at all. Keep in mind, Trump saved his career, which again, I don't really know how I feel about the whole loyalty thing, because you'll have some people that are a lot, they're heavy on the loyalty stuff where they're like, oh, well, if you do something nice for somebody, well, you have to support them no matter what, even if there's like better options or whatever. And it's like, I don't really feel like that's entirely true. I just see DeSantis as somebody who's not really a better option when you look into it. But I will say that it's like, the fact is Trump is out there. He's the best he's ever been, besides maybe like energy, because he's 8 years older, over the past couple of months or so. And you have DeSantis being propped up by the establishment. And he's going to be the guy to run and lose to him, by the way, in the primary. But he's going to divide the party unnecessarily ahead of 2024, which is going to hold the party back, not just at the presidential level, but down ballot. A lot of these Senate candidates, which thankfully Steve Daines is clearing fields in a lot of these competitive races, and that is a good thing. But the same thing should be done at the presidential level. And there's no need for DeSantis in this race. And he's taking a very risky political gamble because he could be supporting Trump right now. He could be vying for the VP slot. Trump could be already moving his residency right now. And what is DeSantis going out there and doing? Well, he's just like taking a little slight at him, taking a little jab, saying, I don't know what goes into paying money to secure silence over this affair, which is buying into the left's narrative about it. And then he's pivoting and he's talking about the Soros-backed DAs and how they don't have any in Florida, which is good. I'm glad that DeSantis is taking on these DAs or whatever, making sure the DAs are not like crazy leftists or whatever. But at the same time, you can't sit back here and say that this was a solid response. I don't believe it was. You read Vivek Ramaswamy's response, and he's also a candidate in this race. He's going up against Trump and DeSantis. He said, they hate Trump because Trump is, he's a threat to the system, whatever. This is an abuse of justice on a former president. But then DeSantis doesn't even mention his name. And you could say, well, Trump has been attacking DeSantis lately. It's like, okay, then maybe you should take the high road. I mean, if that's your whole thing, not mentioning it, maybe you should just like take the high road here. Politically speaking, taking the high road would be far more advantageous for you than sitting back here and putting up a weak statement that's a gamble that's going to backfire. What is his angle to pretend Trump doesn't really exist before he jumps in the race and then just starts attacking him? I mean, he did that. And there's another thing we could talk about with the whole Piers Morgan interview that he just did where he attacked Trump on COVID or whatever. And it's like, it's still disingenuous. DeSantis was double masking when Trump was talking about how we need to liberate Michigan. We need to liberate all these states and, targeting these governors. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about DeSantis praising Fauci in March of 2020, April of 2020. We have the receipts there. We do. Trump was at odds with Fauci. Not enough. I agree. Should he have been fired? Yes. But again, there would have likely been many political consequences because of it. Maybe they would have been positive. I don't know. I agree that he should have been tougher on the riots, but in terms of COVID at the time, given what he knew, given the situation he was in, it would have been a very risky move, even if it may have paid off for society's benefit down the road. But still, it's funny because a lot of these DeSantis people are those electabros. It's convenient for them. They're very sheepish when it comes to taking on the institutions. That's why they want somebody like DeSantis in there in the first place, because even though he may have been he's a solid governor, in terms of his federal policy, he is very much a status quo guy who gives these half-baked, focus group tested political statements that are meant to like appease the Trump base, but also appease the GOP establishment to a certain point. We talked about that on the stream that we did covering the whole Ukraine statements that a lot of these people made. Yeah, his statement was far better than somebody like Nikki Haley or Mike Pence's, whose statements were god awful, but it still came off like a typical politician. Even though Trump didn't say, something that was vastly different, it still came off as a little bit more genuine. We'll take on the situation. No more aid. If I was there, this wouldn't be happening. And it's true, because that's how Trump handled his foreign policy. You're not going to get a better foreign policy from any president that we've ever seen than Trump right now, realistically speaking. And beyond that point, you look into it and it's like, yeah, even then we didn't end enough wars, even then, but still, just because of the fact that he went around and he stood up for America on the world stage, renegotiated NATO, he has that all under his belt. Foreign policy in the primary, the voters that are voting based off of that, unless they're total neocons who are going to vote for somebody like Nikki Haley or John Bolton, Trump is going to win those voters by a ridiculously sizable margin. And then Trump hit back on Ron DeSantis, by the way, which I think was justified and warranted. And I've been somebody who's kind of taken a little bit more of a backseat approach on the channel about talking about 2024, because we are still far away. We're getting close, but we're going to be talking about it a little bit more. But you're looking into this and it's like, yeah, the party's still divided, but it does seem as if now we gotta start to ramp this up, because if you see DeSantis coming out here, he is announcing his run and they're targeting Trump for ridiculous things. And the DeSantis is jumping on that bandwagon, taking the slights, giving weak statements, being a fence sitter. Yeah, he's going to get called out for it. I don't know why people act like Trump is somebody that you could just like consistently roast, throw these political punches at. But if you dare criticize DeSantis about anything, you're a Blumph cultist. And it's like, no, I criticize Trump. I criticize DeSantis. I criticize everybody pretty much. I've even criticized some of my own past stances that I've made on this channel over the past 3-4 years. Not everybody holds the same political positions, especially when they're, in their late teens, early 20s. But what I will say is you have this weird phenomenon on the right where if Trump criticizes DeSantis, it's like hell is frozen over. And I'm not even going to say DeSantis can't take shots at Trump. But what I'm saying is, politically speaking, if you're going to be taking jabs like that while ignoring something that's an objective abuse of power like this and just pivoting and making it about yourself, then I don't see that as a net positive. I really don't. And he could attack Trump all he wants, but it's going to hurt him. And if Trump punches back, then hey, don't really condemn it. There's no need to, because he's just defending himself. And you could say that Trump threw the first jabs at DeSantis. He usually doesn't do this. He usually never really throws the first jabs. Usually he always responds to things. The only thing I can think of was the whole like Obama stuff back in 2011 when I think he was vying for the job or whatever. And I think that he sees DeSantis as, just being propped up by all these people as a reason to go out and attack him, call him Ron DeSanctimonious. He denied using Meatball Ron. I don't think he's going to be using that one, even though I think that one's the funniest so far. He kind of gets red in the face. He's Italian, whatever. It's just a joke is what it is. But he says Ron DeSanctimonious will probably find out about false accusations and fake stories sometime in the future as he gets older, wiser, and better known when he's unfairly and illegally attacked by a woman, even classmates that are underage or possibly a man, which that part is the best part of all, which is funny. Now, some people are like, he's calling him gay. It's like, no, he's just being Trump. He's being funny. Then he says, I'm sure he will want to fight these misfits just like I do. And what he's saying here is 100% true. Take your emotional glasses off for like 5 seconds here and understand what's being said. He says that DeSantis is going to find out that there's going to be all these fake accusations thrown his way by all of these people. When you get to a powerful level, you're going to see this. You will see women claim that you sexually harassed them, sexually abused them, even when you didn't in politics. In many cases, you will see this. They did it to Trump. Arguably may have even done it to Biden, even though given his behavior, I think it's a little bit more believable. But then those news stories just faded away. And they'll probably find a way to do it to DeSantis. Those pictures that were used by the Gillum campaign back in 2018, like they were saying, like he's drinking with these underage people, which some people might say that's not that big of a deal or whatever, because they're like within 5 years of each other. And I mean, a lot of kids do drink or whatever, but still one could say that that would be something that will be used against him. It'll be something that would hurt him in a general. And there are going to be all of these attack lines that are going to be thrown out that are fake. If DeSantis really is that threat to the system, you will likely see plenty of manufactured hit pieces on him. You likely will. You will see everything about him aired out to the public eye. And even if he's not the biggest threat to the system, even if he's a status quo Republican, still, even now in this day and age, you will see a lot of false attack lines. Excuse me, by the way. You will see a lot of false attack lines thrown his way by these people. You will see a lot of allegations thrown his way by crazy people who have no business influencing the political arena. But still, it's true. And everything being said in this Truth Social post is very true. Now, the possibly a man stuff is the funniest. That's the added Trump humor. Kind of glad that he's throwing that in there. Usually he's been a little weak on the alphabet stuff, but it does seem like that may be one issue where DeSantis has arguably pushed him to the right in, because now you look at his policy and he's saying, we're going to ban sex change operations for minors. We're going to do all of these things that are things that would be just common sense 5-10 years ago. But that's a little bit beside the point. What we do know is that everything being said here is true. Objectively speaking, you might not like it, but it is. And if DeSantis is the threat to the system, like they say Trump is not, and DeSantis is like the real threat to the system, okay, well, by that logic, you would see more false accusations thrown his way. And you probably will see some, and they probably will affect him more than they'll affect somebody like Trump, because Trump knows how to handle the media. When they say DeSantis is like going out there and handling the media, he's standing there in front of like 6 people, 6 reporters, and he's like reading off of an index card that you would buy from CVS. Oh, the Brandon administration, this, and this. And it's like, okay, you know what? You could be governor. Florida is doing well. Some people will say that's because of DeSantis. I think he's played some role. I think part of it is just because New York is a disaster and so many people have fled. But I mean, DeSantis is somebody who has done some good things. That doesn't necessarily mean his record is spotless or his record is not overrated. It's like his whole big landmark don't. And that's another thing. Like they said, he banned the word gay or whatever. You can't say gay. And it's like, no, that was not what the bill did. The bill basically said you couldn't talk about gay sex or just sex in general to students until they're in like the 5th or 6th grade. And it's like, I don't think that went far enough. I think most people would agree that didn't go far enough. Like it's still a net positive. I'm not saying that it's not. And Florida, it's a hard state to run, whatever. But still, I will sit back here and I will say that if that's what your claim to become president of the United States is that you rolled back the clock on education about 5 years, that's not going to sell it to me. It's really not. And it shouldn't. They shouldn't necessarily be able to sell that to you. And that's my take on that issue. But we're going to get to super chats. Some people are probably not happy with what I'm saying because, again, I don't understand this notion where you can't go out there, you can't attack somebody like DeSantis, even though I think everybody agrees he made a ridiculous political miscalculation. But nevertheless, I think it is important that we get to the super chats to get to the people, because I'm sure people will have disagreements that we can kind of cover here, because I think it's important that everybody gets on the correct same page, especially ahead of a very divisive primary season that will be happening. So we're going to start off here. David Zantara says, let it be clear that he's volunteering to be arrested. He lives in Florida. If he stays in Florida, they can't touch him. New York City DA has no jurisdiction. Well, unless the governor of Florida and those people go out there and they I wouldn't say collaborate necessarily, but it is kind of a collaboration. They could sign off on it, and that would not be good. And if DeSantis would do that, that would be something that would really hurt him. So I don't know if he will, but either way, like I said, this is something that will probably end up helping Donald Trump more than it's going to end up hurting him. That part is true. Sam Madsen said, I'd rather bring back adultery laws and charge him with that. Well, the thing is, can you prove that happened? Like, obviously, you talk about statute of limitations. You'd have to be going back 15 years or so. I think that there's probably a lot more pressing issues than saying you allegedly had this affair 15 years ago. We're going to charge you with that. I think that there's probably also plenty of politicians, pretty much 75% of politicians who would be in jail if you had adultery laws again. But even when they did exist, how often were they actually implemented? I don't know. Jeremy G says, hey, Rep, should I move to Ohio or stay in Arizona? Because Arizona is getting a little expensive for cost of living. And I noticed this, and this is one of the reasons why I did not move to Arizona, is because it's getting way too expensive. And it's not as bad as California, but Texas is a lot cheaper than Arizona. But even Texas is not as cheap as it was 10, 15 years ago. But I will say that it depends. I think it depends if you want to stay and fight in Arizona. Arizona is going to need as many people as they possibly can. It's a beautiful state. And I think it's very important that it's saved at the end of the day. I don't know what the answer to that question is. It would really depend on your preference for the weather. If you can afford Arizona, I would probably encourage you to stick it out in Arizona, even though there's some very nice places in Ohio. A lot of people hate on Ohio. I don't really see why. I like Ohio. So BRGRS says, does DeSantis have to resign as governor if he decides to run for president? No, because I think he's signing a bill that would override that. That's going to be passed through the Florida state legislature. So you talk about corruption, and I disagree with the rule, by the way, just throwing that out there. Like, if it was an open primary field and the candidate who I liked the most was governor and they had that rule, I would say, yeah, overturn it. But still, I don't know. It's a very opportunistic move, nevertheless. I mean, I'm not going to fault him too much for it, but I will fault him for running in the situation he's in. Benson X says this energy boost will help Kelly in Wisconsin. It may. And it turns out that they have been pushing early voting significantly on the Republican side there, which is good. I don't have high hopes for this election. I'm not trying to doom either. I encourage people to get out and vote. But I will say that it would be a rapid turnaround if they actually were able to go out there and get it done in Wisconsin. Byron 8899 says, I know this is pure speculation and you don't have to answer this, but what would happen if Trump was hypothetically assassinated? I'd honestly think half the country would be upset about it, but you'd see a lot of people celebrating it on social media. You'd have a lot of deranged leftists going out there and just cheering it on. I mean, they basically have been doing that for a long, long time now already, even since when he first started to run back in 2015. And it's just a disaster. This is the society that we have now. You know, back in the day, it was a bipartisan day of mourning back in 1963, where you had JFK assassinated. A lot of people didn't necessarily like JFK, but, you know, it was a sad day of mourning. But you don't have that now. It's all because of the left. The left is the one that's moving off the cliff. The right should be pulling back and fighting back harder. That's their problem. They're allowing this and they're just sitting there and they're crying about it. And it's like, no, what are you going to do to regain cultural control? What are you going to do to go out there and take back the institutions? That's my question to these people, because the left just didn't get this power overnight. They fought hard tooth and nail for it. Now that they're basically have total control of every institution, a lot of these corporate social media boards, even if they don't have the CEOs or whatever, which I mean, they do in many cases now, but it's sad. Michael, all right, no, we have Sam Madsen says, I was at the Reopen Minnesota protest. Trump tweeted out liberate Minnesota that day, but went and recanted it the very next day. Sorry, but the fact is that he is being outflanked by Ron on COVID is his own fault. No, I'm not necessarily saying that it's not. Ron is going to try and outflank him on COVID. The bottom line is that Ron DeSantis's record on COVID is not very different than Donald Trump, for one. For two, are the voters in the primary going to be hyper fixated on COVID in 2024? I mean, it's basically gone. I mean, it's basically gone in terms of the mandates or whatever. Even the liberal areas don't have it. They're sweeping everything under the rug. They're pretending like their vast overreaction to literally everything didn't matter and it didn't happen. So we'll see. I don't think COVID's a number one issue. I don't think it's top 5. I don't think it's top 10 for Republicans. Obviously, Trump and DeSantis both have the same stance on the jab. DeSantis promoted it 1,600 times in 2021, far more than Trump even did publicly. And that was bragged about by his lead advisor, who's a total Ukraine shill, by the way. So I don't necessarily believe that it's something that should be a massive positive for DeSantis or a massive negative for Trump. Trump had made some missteps that are going to come back to, I guess, hurt him. But is the average voter even going to know or care about that? We'll see how the debates pan out for sure. Mike Lucas says there's a difference between taking the high road and being a complete fool. Let me rush to the defense of the man openly insulting me. Well, I think that there's a fine line here. You could see the fact that Trump has gone out there. He's called him sanctimonious, whatever, you know, and you could still take the high road and say that this is a messed up thing that's happening to somebody because they are still a threat to the system. They are a threat to the liberal world order. They're a threat to globalists. They're a threat to neocons, etc. He's not saying any of that. He's not even, you know, punching back at Trump, though. That's his thing. It makes him look dumb and makes him just look like he's sitting in the corner, not saying anything favor of Trump, not attacking Trump. He could have already squashed this beef a long time ago, but he's going out there and he's like, I'm just focusing on Florida. I'm just focusing on Florida. Well, the entire nation is in Florida, Ron. I think that he's going to find that out soon enough when he gets to Iowa. And when his actual record is unopened out of the box and it turns out that, oh, wait, maybe you're not that strong at the national level as we initially thought you may have been. So FM32047 says, I know you're feeling on celebrity candidates, but I think with Trump coattails in Nevada moving to the right, Rick Harrison can win Nevada's Senate race. Well, I agree. In a presidential year, it's going to be vastly different than in a non-presidential year. And this is something that we may have miscalculated during the midterms, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you throw out everything that we saw, politically speaking, from 2020, because 2022 was a midterm year. It was unique, and maybe top of the ticket mattered, and that was a takeaway, but that was also the takeaway of 2020. And it turns out that if you have Trump's base turning out for Trump, a lot of these people down ballot, even if they are very MAGA America first types, they all outperformed him. You look at people like Gosar outperformed him. People like MTG outperformed him. People like Boebert outperformed in line with him. Gates in line with him. So you talk about presidential years, they definitely do make a difference there. Also, FM says, adding to my other super chat, with Trump on the top of the ticket, we could potentially see Mastriano, Duffy, and Hamadeh running for Senate. If Casey retires, I think they'll also all win. I don't think Mastriano is going to take it. He didn't really run much of a campaign at all. And if Casey retires, you're probably going to have Wolf run for Senate. And he would probably beat Mastriano at a presidential year by, I don't know. I think Mastriano would underrun Trump by around 5 points or so. And obviously the focus wouldn't be on him, but he just doesn't know how to run a campaign. He's a nice guy, don't get me wrong. He just doesn't know how to win. And I want solid people, but I want people that know how to win. Mastriano can run for Congress. He could primary out somebody in a very rural district. He already has the name recognition. But either way, if he runs for Senate, he's not getting the nomination. I don't want him getting it, and I don't want McCormick getting it for very different reasons. If he gets it, I'll support him 100%. I'm not going to be one of these people, oh, I'm not going to vote for him. I don't have, whatever. Those people are losers. But I will say that there probably are better options that can actually stand a chance if Casey retires. But either way, Casey's probably not going to retire. He's probably going to beat anybody. So I just would rather have somebody that we could just end the career of. So maybe McCormick getting the nomination wouldn't be the end of the world, because he'd be a sacrificial lamb. We'd never hear from the guy ever again, and he wouldn't necessarily weigh down the ticket too much in certain places. But I mean, that's just my takeaway. Mr. Jimmy says 2026 midterms if Trump wins in 2024 or Biden wins. I don't know. Let's get to 2024 first. We could sit here and speculate. You could look at historical trends and take inferences from there. But I don't know. Let's see. I'm pulling up more. We're going to read this. Okay, Mike Lucas says, don't say gay isn't going far enough as you shill for the man who praised Jenner. Lol, love you, Red Eagle. The problem with that is like, oh, wow, Trump said that he is friendly with some celebrity or whatever. Trump wasn't saying, oh, it's stunning and brave like all of these people on the left were saying. Trump just didn't care about the alphabet issue because he's from New York. And I don't like the fact that he didn't care about it, but you look at the policy that he's proposing about it, it seems a little bit stronger than the actions he took during his presidency, where you had a little bit of a mixed bag. He did the military thing. That was solid. He did some solid things on the issue, and then he did some not so solid things on the issue and wasted time pandering to gay voters. He didn't see any positive returns. Don't give me exit polls as a source, because exit polls sucked in 2020. But what I will say is DeSantis is out there mailing onesies to, all these gay couples that have these kids. And which one is arguably more notable? Trump being vaguely friendly with Jenner, or DeSantis mailing onesies for children that have been quote unquote adopted by these individuals? What's your take on that? That's what I say. Jay Shug says, what are the odds that they will charge him and prevent him from running for president? They can't do that. They'd have to impeach him, which that would fail, especially because McCarthy would never support that. And McCarthy's actually not done a bad job so far, even though I still remain very skeptical of him. Tracking the core of stuff and that cutoff says Social Security should be abolished because it's wrong to take the money of hardworking Americans to fund a bunch of lazy and entitled people. And those that support Social Security are socialists. Well, now I see what you did there. You were trying to make me say that, then they're going to cut it off and they're going to air that on every single television station in the country when I run for political office. But seriously, what I will say is I think that there needs to be some reform. I think politically speaking, it is not advantageous, even if reforming it is the right thing to do. But is it the number one issue right now? Why don't we actually fix the population pyramid first? Why don't we have the baby boom like Trump said and Orban has said? And now Trump's on the same page with Orban about that. And then you still have people that are like saying, oh, DeSantis is better. It's like, no, he's not. Polite Rude Guy says, are you going to the Trump rally in Waco? I will not. I would be, but I will be out of town. But he's still going to rally. Even if he gets arrested, he's likely still going to rally. Samuel Harrison says, who do you think Taylor Swift is the most liberal song artist? I don't even know. That doesn't even make sense as a question. Are you saying, is she the most liberal song artist? I don't believe so. There's plenty of other liberal song artists, but they're all NPCs. They're all like on the same page. I don't know how you would define one as being more liberal than other. I think it would just be like a TDS meter if they're known for their TDS or not. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of liberal mainstream artists now. Obviously, we got to do what we can do to change that. That Leaf says, if riots or protests do happen in New York or DC, it'll likely be the far left doing it either in celebration or anger over the outcome of this fiasco. I don't even think the far left cares about this, honestly. I don't think that they're going to waste their time and energy on this. It's not really like a cultural issue that's on the minds of a lot of people. I don't even think you're going to see a lot of people be motivated to protest because of this in general. But I will say that if there's rioting on behalf of Trump supporters, there will likely be feds involved. That's probably what we know, how these things usually pan out. So James Jarvis has ever considered your name to At the End of the Day Politics, lol JK. Well, the reason why I say that is because we do a lot of prognostication or predictions in this sphere. So when you're comparing something now to the outcome of either a political issue or something that's braised about a candidate running for political office, saying at the end of the day or when it's all said and done is par for the course. Also, where based on trends do you see the country in 5 years? I think that depends solely on the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. That's my takeaway on that. So take what you will from that. There's more super chats we have here. Tetsu Manchi retracted the message, tracking the core of stuff and more, says Social Security is causing reckless spending. I agree. I think it needs reform. But again, you have a lot of people that do rely on it. If you're going to be going out there and talking about cutting Social Security or even partial privatization into low risk left and right, it's not going to help you. And that's one of the reasons why Blake Masters ran behind in 2022 as well, even though it was taken a little bit out of context, one could say. Will Wynn says, did Trump purposely throw the media off so he can troll them? Maybe. I mean, he is a very good troll. I'm not somebody that's going to say he's doing 4D chess 24/7, but he is trolling 24/7. That part is true. So there is probably some truth into that. Yeah. Polite Rude Guy says, if you ever turn into a rhino, I'll let you know. Well, thank you for letting me know, but I don't believe that's going to happen. John Waffle H2P says, are you going to run against Grifter Cornyn? I don't believe that I'm planning on running for Senate in 2030 because it would be 2036 or no, 2032 is when I'd be able to run when his term's up. No, I'm not going to do that. More likely than not. Like I said, I don't think running for Senate out of the gate or governor is a good idea. I think you have to build up political capital. You have to get involved in the political system. Even if you're going to be subjecting yourself to becoming like a career politician, like let's say Trump wasn't in the race. Yeah, DeSantis would be the favorite for the nomination, and he's been a career politician. So ideally, it's like, yeah, I would rather be this outsider who runs, but it's like that's a pipe dream. Trump's the only one in history that's been able to go out there and do it successfully, which is kind of what makes his story so important. And that's kind of why he has the level of following that he does. So Jay Shug says, do you think the charges against Trump in Georgia will have any merit? Will they be successful in Georgia? I believe the charges is this referring to something that I'm not aware of? But either way, if they're trying to get him on something else now in some other place, then I think that it's probably even more ridiculous, as improbable as it may sound, to what they're trying to get him for in New York. So Christopher Laurie says, I'm pretty black-pilled about Arizona, to be honest. I don't understand why people get angry when you dare to criticize the warmonger John McCain. I do believe that the McCain effect is overstated, and some people might disagree, but the state is changing vastly. The Republican Party in the state does have the McCain type of rhinos, but they also do have a very large MAGA faction as well that can't be ignored. And a lot of these Trump-backed candidates or whatever have a higher floor in a state like Arizona than they do in many other places, like even the Rust Belt, for example, where Trump actually, plays out very well when he's on the ballot. But I mean, McCain's approval rating isn't as high as people think it is in Arizona, but you do have people that grew up just with John McCain Terminal at the airport, John McCain Road or whatever, McCain Road, McCain Street, everywhere, because he's been viewed as a hero in the state of Arizona. Whether you believe he is or not, that's beside the point. I choose to view him as a warmongering dinosaur who lost the 2008 election, even though I think, pretty much every Republican would have. But still, I don't view him favorably. I don't think you have to view him favorably or you're a terrible person. The people that are saying that are liberal Democrats who were comparing him to Hitler when he was running up against Obama. They were comparing him to George Wallace. But now that he's going out there, he's opposing Trump. Oh, no, he's the best guy in the world. He's a hero. He's a true Republican. He's a true conservative. Oh, it's a disaster. Let's see. C. Jenkins 313 says, what's your favorite music genre and music artist? I mean, depends what you mean. I mean, there's good music in a lot of different genres. I will say that. I don't even know if I could settle on a favorite artist. Like you say, like a favorite rapper or like whatever. Lil Wayne has good punchlines, so I guess we go with him. But there's definitely a lot of nuance to the music question. Hayden Johnson says, would you run for office in Texas or Michigan? I have no idea. I'm not planning on running for office until 2026 if I do decide to run for office. There's plenty of things that need to be taken care of before then. And part of that is the 2024 election. So Polite Rude Guy says, Trump destroys the deep state, patriots can win after. Well, definitely if you talk about gutting the GOP establishment, if you are able to go out there and effectively repeal and replace it, the solid candidates will have much of a better chance of standing, of getting funded, of winning in places that are typically swing states and districts. So Tucson Paleocon's opinion on Isabella Delica's name for Ron DeHomo. I mean, I don't know who that is, but I will say that is kind of what Trump basically labeled him as in a roundabout way as a joke, which again is pretty funny. Redcoat says Vivek's folks are from near my dad's town. He's from a very high IQ caste. It's the Indian stuff being poured in, maybe the smartest in India, but also the same as VP's or the vice president's mom and Kamasha Sawant. I don't know who that last person is, but I mean, that would probably make sense if you talk about the fact we've had all this selective migration from places like India. You're probably going to see some people that are in like the highest castes or whatever. You're not going to see the untouchables or whatever they call those people back in the caste system back in the day, immigrating in high numbers. But I guess that I don't know if they still have the caste system. I'm sure it exists in some roundabout way. I don't know. There's always going to be a social pyramid in pretty much every society. There's going to be structure. Even here we do it with the working poor, then the working class, then the lower middle class, and the middle class, and the upper middle class, then the upper class, and the top 1%, the top 0.1%. It's a pyramid is what it is. So, I mean, they definitely have more rigid guidelines than a lot of other societies have. And I don't even know if they still have it in the same way, but they definitely did for a long time back in the day in India and other places in South Asia. Let's see. Mike Lucas says you can't be a populist and support Social Security cuts. I think that it depends. Populism is a very vague definition. You could maybe say some Ron Paul type libertarians are in their own way populist or like very traditional, but it doesn't necessarily mean that all of their policies are populist, or we could debate how the policies would actually affect the everyday people or whatever, if they're in the benefit of the people. Personally, I'd be fine with a system where you have a partially privatized Social Security with high returns, where they invested in IRAs and things like that. That'll probably end up having a higher return at the end of the day. I think getting rid of the gold standard was also a massive mess if you look at the returns of income and how you did see a lot of shift in disparity when that was done. I'm not saying it's the only cause or that we need to stay with the gold standard or return to it. I'm sure we could do some other form of a mineral backed standard, but is what it is. Let's see. Alex Reyes says, can Trump beat DeSantis in the Florida primary? Well, he's winning the poll. I think he could. John Waffle H2 pieces. Do you think standing outside with the sign yelling at the media is a good way to start the campaign? I mean, I think that, like I said, I'd rather have people protest or quote unquote protest by registering voters, going out there, flying to Wisconsin and making sure that you can save that court from being taken away by liberals that are going to ensure to pull out all the stops on Trump, electorally speaking, in 2024. So I think there's a lot of things people should do and can do to get involved in politics. I don't know if yelling with a sign is the best idea, even though it might make for good content. But like I said, be careful, because you will have a lot of these feds trying to infiltrate these, pro-Trump rallies, and they're going to cause chaos, just like you saw on 1/6 back in 2021. Stefan Godillo says all hope is lost. Well, I might not go that far. Wholesome DJ Aftershock says, hi, IQ Asian Imperator Rufus, pregnant with DeSantis, half Asian child, low IQ Buffett Red Eagle live with Vince Dow in mobile home park. Yeah, real tweet by Rufus, by the way, probably. I don't know. And for those who don't know who Rufus is, I think it'd be relevant to pull this up if we could, because this was insane. And this is how the people that are supporting or that are opposing Trump from the right are acting now. You see that they're now saying that, and this is not everybody, so I'm not trying to throw everybody in one little box, because I don't think it'd be fair if it was the other way around, but that's not the point. They are doing it to us. We're going to do it to them too. So he's like, when Trump passes away, I will refuse to give him the honors and respect usually conferred upon presidents when they pass away. And it's like, okay, the dude's not even saying this about like Biden or Obama or anybody like that he has actual like serious disagreements with. He's saying that about Trump, who objectively, since my lifetime, has been the best president we've had. Now, some of the boomers will throw in somebody like Reagan, and we could debate who's better between those two. But this guy's like, what, 40? He's not old enough to really remember Reagan necessarily, or he was a kid, like 8 or 9 years old or so by the time Reagan left office. And that was like the oldest you could say this guy maybe have been at the time. So yeah, okay. And he's always the one talking about age. A lot of these people, they're like Gen Xers. They're like, the Zoomers don't count. They don't matter. And it's like, okay, I wonder why that a lot of these people get run out of Republican politics. I think one of the reasons is because you have a lot of these, you will have the boomers that are like welcoming and like, oh, it's good to have young people. But then the second that the young people on the right start, getting a little bit into policy or whatever, supporting different people than the status quo, you'll have a lot of older people that are going to jump down their throats and just try to get at them because of it. And also, this guy also has been basically cheering for Trump to pass away for what he claims to be the sake of America, the GOP, and conservatism. So you talk about derangement. I'm seeing a lot of TDS and like takes you wouldn't even see from like your average resist lib back in 2017 being utilized by a lot of these neo-never Trumpers, and they're cheering on the arrest. They're going out there and they're saying that Trump is a disaster for the GOP. Trump's the only reason why the GOP is still relevant to a lot of people. I mean, they were headed for a regional party. You could say he caused suburban bleeding electorally speaking, but a lot of that was happening anyways. Demographically speaking, the suburbs are not the same. And even then, it's not like these people all hate Biden. White college-educated voters have a net favorable view of Joe Biden, particularly those women. So it's not like they just oppose Donald Trump for the sake of opposing Trump, or they're opposing Trump-backed Republicans. They're opposing Republicans, but they're also supporting Democrats. They have a favorable view. Nobody's telling these people to have a favorable view of Biden. Like in Texas, a lot of Hispanics disapprove of Biden, but still are going to vote for him likely by more than 50%, not like 75-25, but you'll see over 50% of Hispanics vote for Joe Biden when he only has like a 25-30% approval rating among Texas Hispanics because they disapprove of both. But when it comes to these suburban white women, they not only disapprove of Donald Trump, they also approve of Joe Biden, which is a disaster, one could say. These people are not like Republicans who would come out in droves for DeSantis either. They'd probably view him as they like start calling him like Mussolini or something like that the second he get the nomination. And maybe the attack wouldn't stick here and there, but then you'd have problems with rural turnout. It's a mess. We could cover it all, but it's a mess. And I'm sure we will cover it all eventually. But that's the caliber of people you're going to be dealing with when you deal with a lot of these never Trumpers. They're no different than the left in many cases with their rhetoric, and they spend more of their time attacking Trump than they do attacking the left or promoting certain policy that they view to be beneficial for the country. They're basically glorified A-logs is what they are. They're in politics, and they're just trying to go out there and cause chaos for the sake of just causing chaos. And they are a disaster. So Tetsamanchi says, in your last video, you did predict a Biden win in Arizona, even if the GOP embraces Dem tactics. Does this make it a de facto blue state? Listen, I don't know. I'm saying they're going to try to pull out all the stops, and we got to pull out all the stops in the inverse. I don't necessarily believe that Arizona is a for sure loss or for sure gone thing, just like I'm not even sure Georgia is a for sure loss, at least in 2024. I think it is past that for sure, but I wouldn't call it a blue state. It's still a swing state. We'll have to see which way it goes in 2024. We'll get a better angle from it beyond that point. Redcoat says, second one is from Seattle. DSA caste system is illegal now. Interesting. Christopher Laurie says, unrelated question. What is your take on Goldwater? I looked up the Republicans that ran for president in 1964. Most were liberals or libertarians. Here's my takeaway on Goldwater. A lot of his policy was very cringeworthy, although the energy behind him eventually transformed into the Reagan energy. And even though we can criticize Reagan for doing a lot of bad things like amnesty, gun control, etc., free trade, still one could say that him and the rise of him was definitely a step towards the right direction, because without him, conservatism would have been Gerald Ford and George H.W. Bush pre-Reagan. Like, that was your option at the time. So I can't sit back here and say that Reagan was a net negative, but the idolization of Reagan that has taken place past the end of his presidency has been an unmitigated disaster for the Republican Party, because they think that that stuff still works and it really doesn't. So, but I will say Goldwater was an interesting individual. He had a lot of weird views, and still one could say his effect on conservatism was a positive, but then he also promoted things like, rapid social libertarianism and just stuff that doesn't really play out too well in my book. So Mike Lucas says, privatizing Social Security would need to be optional. Some folks want security. That is my portfolio. It isn't down 33% the year I happen to retire. And I think that the option to opt out is positive. I think that that's not necessarily something that I would have a problem with, as long as it doesn't necessarily throw everybody off, one could say. Wholesome DJ Aftershock says, you want an example of how people in the burbs change? Look who used to represent Douglas, Arapahoe, and Jefferson County in the 2000s, Tom Tancredo himself. And Tom Tancredo is somebody who one could say is further right than Trump, more controversial than Trump on policy at least, and is more in line with somebody like a Pat Buchanan type. So, yeah, I would agree 100%. Even Paul Gosar in 2010 was winning a district in suburban Phoenix that I believe voted for Obama, or it was at least at the very minimum a swing district. So these things have changed since then. And I know Gosar has sort of changed since then as well in terms of which wing of the party he's viewed in. And he's definitely moved more to the, diehard America First side of things, which is good. But at the same time, in terms of winning the swing district now, I don't know if that would be done, but Either way, his district is safe red, and he is a great fit for his own district, and that's a very good thing. So we'll see how long he lasts. I know he's getting old. And then from there, maybe Masters could take his place. I know he doesn't live in his district, but who knows what the political environment would be like in 2026 or 2028. So we'll see. But anyways, guys, last calls. Do we have any last calls for Super Chats? I think we're going to end soon. I'll be back. I will stream on Thursday. We're going to try to stream 2 to 3 times a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, some Sundays. If there's enough to talk about, for sure, we'll go live then. And that is true. So any last calls, we'll get to them. Also, join the website, redeaglepolitics.com. Make sure you guys sign up. It is just 16 cents a day. Or you could say that it would be $5 a month, but I think 16 cents a day sounds a little bit cooler. It's a coffee a month, one could say. You get access to the Discord server. You also get access to all of my exclusive videos. I think we're going to be dropping one tomorrow. The Zoom doesn't really work very well in this size of window. We can maybe change that a little bit. Okay, that's a big mess. There we go. That should be better. But there you go. You could see all these exclusive videos. You could join the Discord server, see all the articles, do what you got to do. But either way, it's just $5 per month. Sign up. You won't regret it. redeaglepolitics.com. All right. So I think we're going to end the stream here. Doesn't seem like we have any more additional Super Chats, but I think it was an important stream. We covered a lot of ground, and I think that the tides are really turning. And the sooner that the party is unified behind one nominee, the better. And I think that everybody can agree with that. Why not get behind the already, one could say, incumbent leader of the party, instead of taking a gamble with somebody who's polling at like 20% in a lot of these early states, just dividing the party, and provided a weak response and made a political miscalculation, honestly, because 2028 comes up short, is still like a Trump supporter, just wants to do things differently, whatever. Okay, fine. I think a lot of people would forgive him. But if Trump gets the nomination, wins the general, I think a lot of people, I mean, they'll come probably back around a little bit the way they did with Ted Cruz, but it's not going to be the same for DeSantis. He's not going to be the favorite in 2028. Who knows who the favorite will be? So a little bit of a political miscalculation there. Some people will say it's not that big of a deal. I think it is bigger than people think it is, but we'll have to see what happens in the coming weeks and months or so. So anyways, guys, one Super Chat. Lifeful Foley says we should use the government to support Christian values. The left uses the government to, I don't even know that word, indoctrinate their values, I guess is what he's trying to say. We should do that with ours. Well, I always say this about indoctrination, and it is something that will always exist. Either you're going to have this secular indoctrination into liberalism that has persisted in society for, 50, 60 years or so, going back beyond that, or you're going to have authentic conservative, one could say, I don't even like the term indoctrination because it is a term used by the left. It is a term that is kind of seen as a dirty word. But this is true. You're going to have a culture. We need our culture to be retaken. That includes the educational system 100% of the way. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.